Crime Shadows based on true crime stories. Marawi, a city once filled with life, culture, and history, was transformed into a war zone overnight. What was supposed to be just another regular day in May 2017 turned into a nightmare that lasted 5 long months. Gunfire, explosions, and the chilling cries of the innocent filled the air as the Maute group, an ISIS-affiliated militant faction, unleashed terror upon the city. This is the story of the Siege of Marawi, a battle of survival, resilience, and devastation. But beyond the facts, let us step into the heart of the chaos, where fear was a constant companion, and every street became a battlefield. The day Marawi fell, it began with whispers, unconfirmed reports of armed men gathering near the city's perimeter. Some brushed it off, believing it to be nothing more than another false alarm. But as the sun climbed high, those whispers turned into deafening reality. At noon, the streets were alive with their usual energy, market vendors calling out their best deals, children laughing as they ran through the narrow alleys, the scent of freshly cooked food drifting through the air. Then, like a sudden storm, everything changed. A deafening explosion shattered the peace. Smoke rose in thick black columns from the distance. The ground trembled as a wave of armed men poured into the city, their faces concealed behind black scarves, their hands gripping rifles with deadly intent. The first bullet struck the police station. Officers barely had time to react before the Maute group overwhelmed them, executing those who resisted and taking control of weapons and vehicles. Terror spread like wildfire, a city under siege. Within hours, Marawi was unrecognizable. Banks were looted, government buildings were seized, and ISIS flags fluttered atop rooftops. Residents ran for their lives, their desperate screams echoing through the streets as gunmen fired indiscriminately. Among them was Amir, a young father clutching his daughter's hand. His wife, Fatima, had left early that morning for work. He hadn't heard from her since the first gunshots rang out. Desperation clawed at his chest as he maneuvered through the chaos, shielding his daughter from the horror unfolding around them. On the other side of the city, soldiers arrived in armored vehicles, their faces set with grim determination. They knew the battle ahead would not be easy. Urban warfare was a soldier's nightmare. The enemy was everywhere, hidden within homes, perched on rooftops, striking from the shadows. The air vibrated with gunfire and explosions as the Philippine military engaged in a deadly chess game with the militants. Every street, every building became a contested war zone. The city that once stood as a beacon of cultural pride was now a battlefield soaked in blood. The terror within. As the days stretched into weeks, Marawi became a prison. Those trapped within its ruins faced a grim fate, execution by the Maute group or death by starvation. Supplies dwindled, and the once bustling markets were reduced to silent, burnt-out skeletons. One such prisoner was Sister Maria, a nun who had devoted her life to caring for the orphaned and the abandoned. Now, she found herself at the mercy of the militants, forced to watch as they destroyed the very streets she had walked for decades. The militants took hostages, using them as human shields against airstrikes and sniper fire. The Philippine military, bound by their duty to protect, faced an impossible choice: attack and risk civilian lives, or hold back and let the enemy strengthen their hold. The world watched as the battle raged, but for those within, each second was a desperate fight for survival. The turning point. By September, the tide began to shift. Reinforcements arrived, and the military intensified their assault. Fighter jets roared through the skies, dropping bombs with pinpoint precision. The city shook with each explosion, the very ground beneath it crumbling under the weight of war. One by one, key strongholds fell. Bridges collapsed, buildings caved in, and tunnels used by the militants were sealed. The once feared insurgents were now on the run, their reign of terror crumbling before their eyes. Among them was Ibrahim, a man who had joined the Maute group out of desperation, believing their promises of a better future. Now, as he hid within the ruins of a mosque, he realized the bitter truth. There was no honor in what they had done, only destruction, liberation, and the scars left behind. On October 17, 2017, the Philippine government declared Marawi liberated. 6 days later, combat operations officially ended. But as the smoke cleared, the true cost of the battle was revealed. Over 1,000 lives had been lost. Entire districts lay in ruins, reduced to nothing more than broken concrete and shattered glass. Families searched desperately for their loved ones, many of whom would never be found. Amir found his wife beneath the wreckage of a collapsed school building. Fatima had not survived. He held his daughter close as grief threatened to consume him, a pain shared by thousands of others who had lost everything. The lessons of Marawi. The siege of Marawi was not just a battle, it was a warning, a reminder of the dangers that lurk when extremism takes root, and the devastating consequences when it is allowed to grow unchecked. Similar events have played out across the world: Mosul in Iraq, Aleppo in Syria, and Kabul in Afghanistan. Different locations, different faces, but the same tragic story of destruction, suffering, and the long road to recovery. Marawi's story does not end with its liberation. Its people continue to rebuild, to heal, to reclaim what was lost. But the scars remain, etched into the city's walls and the hearts of its survivors. The world must learn from Marawi, not just to prevent history from repeating itself, but to understand the true cost of war. Because in the end, it is never just cities that burn. It is families, communities, and the dreams of a future that may never come.